This Race Department broadcast is brought to you by GT Omega. GT Omega, race your way. The BenQ EX3501R, ultra-wide sim racing curved monitor. ProSimu, professional motion simulators. And Curbstone, probably the best track and test day organizer in the world, as well as our other selected partners.
Hello and welcome to the SRO GT Series AM Championship. And the coverage is brought to you by RaceDepartment.com in association with GT Omega. Now, the first couple of rounds for the Pro and Silver Championship have already been and gone, and it is now the turn of the AM Championship, and we head to the iconic Silverstone racing circuit. Now, joining me today is the master of touring car and GT commentary, Mr. Martin Haven, and also we are joined by Race Department's sim racing expert, Paul Jeffrey. Now, boys, on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you that we will see some live racing soon?
It's at least a 12, I think.
Yep, I'd have to echo that one. At least a 12. Really excited.
Me too. Now, Martin, like me, you are a novice to the virtual world of racing. What's got your attention so far?
Well, the fact that it is so real. Everything is very close. The physics engines of the cars are absolutely astonishing. So they drive differently. Whichever car you've chosen, you'll have to have had a good reason for doing so, other than maybe you like a Ferrari. But the thing for me, particularly as a commentator, is it's like going to a new paddock, to a new championship. The real difference here, of course, is I can't walk to a team morning and ask a driver about his background and his history like you would normally try to do. So the research is slightly different, but thank goodness for the internet. In terms of the racing, what you're seeing on the monitor, whether you're at a racetrack like Silverstone or whether you're watching it online, is almost identical. Obviously, Silverstone in May, we're guaranteed great weather, so the pictures are going to be astonishing. But it's fantastic close racing. And this AM series, for me, is really intriguing because it's not pro racers, it's not pro racing drivers. These are drivers like me, if I didn't have a job and I'd spent a lot more time playing on games and eventually working up to the simulators. These are guys who don't make a living at it, but who are still really, really good. So I think it's going to be absolutely fascinating to see who is thrown up by the Silverstone race as the top of the pile.
So, Paul, who are the drivers taking part today?
Well, Vicki, as Martin mentioned earlier on in the show, these are community drivers. So these are sim racers that race for passion, that drive on their home rigs at home. There's a qualification session that's been run prior to this first round. So people have set a time that gets them into the top 10 on 4 different servers. The fastest of those drivers have then been invited to take part in the championship. And we've got an array of different talents there. So we've got some people with decades of experience, some just starting out in esport racing. We've got teenagers, people in their 30s and 40s. We've got people who've won championships, got real world experience, got championships in sim racing. And as I say, people that are just very, very quick, but have got to put that raw pace more into a championship environment like this. So anybody could be winning or at the front of the field at the end of this first race. We just don't know at the moment. What we do know is the pace is incredibly high, but who is going to come out on top of our 45 drivers? Find out at the end of the race. Can't wait.
Now, there is a team involved in today's race. They have a car racing in it, and that's Barwell Motorsport. Now, in the real world, I have raced with Barwell Motorsport, and together with 3 other drivers in one Honda Accord, we won a 24-hour race. So I've got a particular interest in that team. Can you tell us a bit more about their driver?
Yep, so Barwell Motorsport have partnered with Race Department for their esports team. We've got Luca Burke representing us in this championship, and it's really exciting, Vicky. We've got great access with Barwell. We're going to be creating loads of really cool content, and in return, we're going to bring the Barwell livery into Assetto Corsa Competizione. Luca is going to represent the team and Race Department in this championship and wider as well, and we're really excited to see what Luca can do, what the car's going to look like in game, and how we can perform against what I expect will be an incredibly tight field of drivers.
Now, looking ahead to our 60-minute race, what can we expect from the drivers and the cars?
I think one of the things that everybody wants is to leave Silverstone with a decent points haul. Whether you're on the podium or not is maybe a little bit of a moot point at this stage, but you've got to score. Don't forget, points only go down to 10th place, and there are 40 cars on the grid. So 3/4 of the drivers are going to go home with a big fat 0 in the score column. So that's the first thing. You've got to score points. The second thing, it's going to be interesting to see who is being cautious, who's being aggressive, and that will be partly their own driving style that they've sort of naturally developed over the years, but also partly what they think their rivals that they've perceived are doing and what their car allows them to do around Silverstone. The qualifiers at Silverstone, in that Silverstone group, those 10 drivers had to use the Bentley GT3, and they will be in that car for the rest of the series. For the other 3 tracks, for Spa, the Nürburgring, and for Barcelona, you could choose whichever car you liked, but whichever car you've qualified for the AM series in, you'll be using that throughout the year. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the cars balance up and how the drivers balance up as well.
It will be a fascinating race to come. Yep, there are 5 races in all. And the drivers have had to work pretty hard to get to this point, to even get onto the grid. And to talk us through the championship a little bit more in detail, we have got the sim racing YouTuber, Chris Hay.
Just like the Pro and Silver Series, the SRO Esport GT AM Championship takes the form of a multi-round series. Today is the first of 5 races, but before we talk about what's coming up, let's see what the drivers had to do to qualify for this competition. And in this case, it's all about pure pace. Over the last couple of weeks, 4 qualification servers have been open to anyone from the sim racing community. The 10 fastest drivers on each of those scoreboards has earned themselves a place in the championship. And to keep things interesting, the car they use to set their qualifying time will be the car that they have to use for the entirety of the championship. So there's a strategic element to car selection for all of our drivers before they've even turned a wheel. Do you run with the quickest car for the track that you're trying to qualify on, or the car that you think is going to be the quickest over all 5 rounds of the championship? And then, what of the 10 drivers that qualify on the Silverstone server who will be using the Bentley Continental GT3? There's a lot to think about. With selection taken care of, our drivers are firmly focused on the next 5 weeks of racing. Every Saturday until the middle of June, we'll see 40 of the best sim racers in the world battle it out in Assetto Corsa Competizione. They will virtually visit 5 of Europe's best-known racing venues with the goal of making it through to the grand final and a chance to compete against real GT World Challenge drivers and the top eSport talent in ACC. But first, there's the small matter of the AM Championship and scoring as many points as possible in each championship round. Only 10 drivers will go through to the final, and those who consistently bring home the points in each round will be in the mix at the end of the championship. And, as an added incentive, the fastest Lamborghini driver will earn the opportunity to test a real-world Lamborghini Super Trofeo car.
What an exciting prospect for everyone, from the drivers through to you, the viewers at home. And for you, things can get a little bit more exciting because each week we will be giving away a prize. And this week it comes from our sponsor, BenQ, and they are giving away an ultra-wide curved screen monitor. All you have to do to take part is follow Race Department on Twitch and comment in the chat section before the fan prize alert is shown at a random point during this broadcast. It really is that easy to get involved, so give it a shot. Terms and conditions apply. Check out RaceDepartment.com for more details. So good luck to that, and you could be racing at Silverstone in ACC very soon. Now, Paul, in your time, I can only assume that you have done some very fast laps around Silverstone yourself.
I've done plenty of laps, very fast as debatable, but fortunately, our good friend of Race Department, Scott Mansell, who you may know as Driver 61, has very kindly agreed to voice over a lap of the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit for us, and Scott knows a thing or two about going quickly around this track, so I'll hand over to Scott now.
Hi, I'm Scott Mantle, head coach from Driver 61, where we train real-world and sim racing drivers. And I'm going to talk you around a lap of the Silverstone GP circuit for round one of the SRO eSport GT AM Series race this weekend. So here we are on board the 2019 Aston Martin, coming onto the start-finish straight. Now up ahead, we've got the fast right-hander of Copse Corner. Really tricky to run wide on the exit. Fourth gear in this Aston Martin, a really fast corner to start the lap. And now we're heading down to the incredible sequence of corners that is Maggots, Beckett and Chapel. A left, right, left onto the hanger straight. A very technical sequence of corners where you can win or lose a lot of lap time here. Critically important in this final section of the corner here to get a great exit coming down onto the hanger straight. Now we're heading down the hanger straight up to 6th gear before we get to the approach into Stowe Corner. A really quick 3rd gear right-hander where again it's very easy to make a mistake on the way in. It's all about the entry speed. Running downhill now towards the Vale complex, a tight left-right chicane. Very technical again. We need to compromise the left-hander slightly so that we can get a really good exit coming through the right and into club, which leads on to the new start-finish straight. Then we have a small moment to take a breath before we turn into the 5th gear right-hander of Abbey Corner, where it's really important to hook up on the apex curbing there. Into Farm, really quick left-hander again before we come down to the slow right-hander of Village, which again, this section is extremely technical, very easy to lose a lot of time here. Set up in a way that actually helps overtaking. We're coming out onto the Wellington straight now. Hopefully we've got a great exit coming out of the previous corner so we can carry that speed all the way down towards Brooklands Corner. Really late on the brakes coming into Brooklands. So actually, again, another very technical corner as it tightens up as you go through the corner before we head into the slow right-hander of Luffield. V the corner off slightly as you come through so that you can get the power down and get a great exit coming out of the corner. These GT cars, it's very important that you get the car in a straight line and get the power into the circuit. And that's one lap of the Silverstone GP circuit.
Martin Haven, the Silverstone Grand Prix track, contains arguably one of the most famous sectors of corners in the entire racing world.
Yeah, the Beckett's S's. You come over the brow in Maggots, the left-hander, flat in 5th, 150 miles an hour, carrying it into the first right of the S's, down to 3rd gear. Control the speed, because the exit, as Scott said, onto the from Chapel Curve onto the hanger straight gives you a big overtaking shot.
Speaking of overtaking, this is going to be one of the key points on the track.
Yeah, it'll be littered with bodywork because a lunge down into Vale as your rival is trying to sort out the triple right-hander for club is always an opportunity.
And then as we head to the newest part of the Silverstone Grand Prix track.
Again, the same day here, you're doing about 50 miles an hour, 2nd gear, 1st gear for the tight left-hander at the loop, and a chance for contact or maybe even a successful pass.
A fan favourite and a driver favourite, the Silverstone Grand Prix track. So, Silverstone, great circuit. And the lap that we did with Scott Mansell was our opportunity to show you what it's like to go around the track. Scott gives some wealth of experience on how to get a quick lap. But what we want to do is activate the sim racing community. So there is a new forum that's going to be open on RaceDepartment.com. And what we want to do is for you to submit your laps. So drop a video in there, a Spa-Francorchamps, which is the second round of the SRO Esport GT Series AM Championship. We will pick one of those laps and we will ask Scott to do a voiceover of how to get around the track, how you can improve your lap time and show it on our pre-race broadcast. So great opportunity to get involved, to be involved in our broadcast and benefit from some of the outstanding experience of Driver 61 and Scott Mantle. So look out at racedepartment.com for that sub-forum and submit your laps from Spa now.
That is such a wonderful idea. So please get your laps in. And may I compliment you, Paul, on a reasonably tidy lap there of Silverstone.
Thank you very much.
Okay, on to the serious stuff now. Earlier on today, the racers had their qualifying and now they are just putting their final preparation towards the first round of the SRO Esport GT Series AM Championship. Paul and Martin will be taking you through the race, but just before that, a word from our sponsors.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to our coverage of the SRO Esports Championship, the AM Series. I'm Martin Haven. Paul Jeffrey is our analyst here, the expert in the sim racing world. And Paul, qualifying has just finished, and our 40 drivers, well, probably quite a lot of them will be a little disappointed with the way things have worked out. But I think the headline here is that these AM drivers, the pole position is faster than the silver or the pro laps that took pole for their races. So there is some pretty good talent in this field.
Yeah, I mean, we discussed it in the pre-show, Martin. There was an element of interest to see how our AM competitors fare up against the real-world drivers. Because, of course, for people who are tuning in for the first time today, there's 3 different championships running in Assetto Corsa Competizione under the SRO banner. There's the Pro Series, which is real-world SRO GT World Challenge drivers, and a few Formula One guys in there as well. There's the Pros, which is the Esport Professionals. And as you say, there's the AM Championship that we're in now, which is the community drivers. And our guys have absolutely come up trumps. We're a couple of tenths or a second ahead of the fastest pole time for the Silvers, and a further 4 tenths in front of the professional drivers as well. Obviously, Martin, we've got dynamic track, we've got different weather conditions, so it's not apples for apples, but the pace has been incredible, and Bentley ahead of a whole bunch of Porsches.
Well, now there are 10 Bentleys in the field, and the Silverstone qualifying server threw up 10 drivers. But the deal with the Silverstone server was that you had to use a Bentley. For the other 3, you could use whichever car you chose. So nobody on any of the other circuits got through using a Bentley, but Bentley clearly works well at Silverstone, and Malcolm Wilson, the M Sport boys, would be very happy to see that as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a big car, the Bentley. In fact, it's a huge car, let's be honest. But it's an incredibly competitive GT3 car. And the key in ACC, as in real life, the car is good over the curbs. And there's a lot of points at Silverstone, as I'm sure you know way better than I do, where monstering the curbs is key to a good lap time, keeping the car stable through the Beckett's complex into the chicane at Abbey as well, that we spoke about at the top of the broadcast. So although evidently the Porsche is looking like a competitive proposition, that Bentley has Bassarori, I believe it is, on pole position. Fantastic job. And I'm really interested to see, Martin, how that holds up in race conditions against a field of Stuttgart's best behind it.
Well, yes. I mean, the Bentley isn't the least numerous car in the field. We've only got one McLaren for a start. We've only got one Aston Martin as well, which is maybe a little bit of a surprise. But with Bentley at the front, the most numerous cars, you say, from Stuttgart, 17 Porsches, 11 Audis in the field. So you can see where the money has been laid in the other qualifying servers. Well, it has been a beautiful day in the sunny West Midlands, trademark, this afternoon. So here we are, the home of the British Grand Prix. And actually, this is a really great week to be at Silverstone because 70 years ago yesterday, the first ever Formula One Grand Prix was held. So this was the venue. The King and Queen came to watch the British Grand Prix, race number 1 of Formula One's history. So it's a track that's very different now from how it was then, very different now from how it was when I first went to see it, but it is still a track that produces great racing. It's very quick, and there are some good overtaking opportunities, more so, particularly for our GT racers, than there would be if they're all in Formula One cars. So you see the poleman with that great black and turquoise livery, Nizar Sahori. He's on pole for Bentley. The next 5 cars are Porsches, and then the solo McLaren 570S. So that's a pretty impressive job to get that car up into 7th place. And there's only 2 interlopers in what has been a very strong qualifying afternoon for Porsche. Best of the Audis in 12th position, the 53 car of Tim Jarschel, the German driver, and they're using the 2019 Audi R8 LMS Evo. 1 hour today's race, no pit stops, and the drivers will therefore have their eyes pinned wide open for the full 60 minutes because, Paul, it is going to be as close as ever. And
Yeah,
don't
good.
forget, sorry, go ahead.
I would say it's going to be incredibly close, Martin, and it's a championship round as well. So although our drivers are going to be very keen to get a race victory, they need to be mindful of needing points as well. This is a 5-race series. A good haul of points sets you up in a very good way for a championship charge throughout the whole campaign.
And points go down only to 10th place. And that means that 3/4 of our drivers are going to go home empty-handed. And so it's going to be important if you're outside the top 10 before the race starts, you have got a lot of work to do. If you're 40th on the grid watching 39 other nutters in front of you, then you know you've got a busy, busy afternoon.
Yep, and Martin, just for the viewers at home, very quickly, we are offering our broadcast sponsor of this event is BenQ, and they will be offering a beautiful curved widescreen gaming monitor. All you have to do is comment in the chat and follow Race Department at Twitch. So get commenting now, everybody at home, before the in-race graphic comes on screen to be in with a shout.
Yeah, and they are fabulous monitors, so that's a freebie. All you've got to do is follow us on Twitch and make a comment, and you are in with as much of a chance as everybody else. So our poleman then, bringing them round, and the pole position time set by Christian Engelhardt in last year's race in a Lamborghini Huracan, a 1:59.11, and Nizar Sahori sets a 1:55.9 pole time. So that is massively impressive. So Team Parker Racing, the Bentley position number 1. Now, he was originally entered in car number 7. Looks like it's changed to 138. So alongside him is the number 4 Porsche, Michele Nerbi from Italy for GTWR Racing Team. And we're using the start-finish line here on the old Grand Prix circuit. So as they come heading into Copse Corner for the very first time, it's wheel-to-wheel, Porsche on the outside, Bentley on the inside. And who has got their tyres warmed up best? Looks like Nizar Sahori from Spain has managed to keep his nose in front, through maggots and into the first element of the Beckett's S's. Down a couple of gears now, and then over the curbs on the inside, avoiding those little rumble strips and powering out onto the hangar straight. And this is where the Bentley driver has to have a good exit to try and drag away from the Porsches. McLaren on the grass as they go 4 wide, 5 wide down to Stowe. Paul, I don't know if that's really a great idea even in the sim world.
Yeah, very exciting start towards the back of the grid. A little bit more adventurous from some cars than I would have anticipated. But Sahara, great start, exactly what he needed to do at the front of the field.
Number 16 there, Michael Tauscher in his Porsche, the red, black and white colours. And Tauscher starting just outside the top 10, so he's got some work to do.
It'll be interesting, Martin, to see the Porsches have all managed to maintain position. They dropped to the McLaren, who's dropped back down. So Miura's dropped back to 13th place as we see the Audi now, very bright coloured Audi there, on the charge through the field. Audi's expected to be a fast car on this track, so we should watch that one for progressing through the field as the race goes on. 58 minutes in, so we've still got plenty of time ahead of us. Everybody's kept it nice and clean thus far.
On board with Michael Condicaglio in his turquoise white and black sort of disruptive pattern quasi Conrad Motorsport Porsche. And where's he running at the moment? 12th position, so 2 out of the points. But here is our second place man, the number 4 machine, Michele Nerbi, GTWR Racing Team. He's got a year and a half of experience, so one of our relative newcomers. Third place, just dropping it back a little behind him, is the number 10 machine. In fact, that was entered as number 8, Daniel Savini, another Italian driver for the Rebel Racing Team. We're on board with Michele Nerbi in second place. Looking back at Savini and Turato, 91 Porsche, that's Alex Turato, another Italian. So we've got 3 Italians chasing the Spaniard in the Bentley, and it looks as though Michele Nerbi is hanging on to our race leader very well, just 0.3 of a second behind on the hangar straight.
Yes, the Porsche traditionally tends to come in a little bit later than some of the other cars, and Nerbi now lining up and overtaking Mover, just showing his nose to Sahara at front of him. Nerbi's car now looking like it's very much on song compared to the Bentley. The Bentley got a lightning start, seems to be the cork in the bottle a little bit at this moment, I think.
Yeah, Sahari was showing his nose down the inside there into the Vale. We talked about the potential of a late lunge down there. He probably wasn't looking to make a pass this early in the race, but he's making Sahari defend, and that makes him slower. As you know from when you're racing on your own or doing your qualifying laps, if you're not using all the road, the maximum width plus the curbs, then you're making the road narrower and less straight for yourself, and it slows you down. And anytime you come off the racing line to defend, and Sahari was doing it there, it slows you down. And that means the Porsche is doing exactly what he needs to right now, showing his nose on the inside. He's got a good front end under the car, turning there into Brooklands just a little early, but he's still, as Brooklands tightened, didn't run out of road on the exit, out of Luffield. And you've got to get on the throttle really early here, hugging the pit wall on the right-hand side, down the old start-finish straight, or for our purposes, the start-finish straight, and then into Copse Corner. Copse Corner, 5th gear with the tiniest of little breaths off the throttle. Let the aero do its work. And we look now at the battle between 8th and 9th. The 2 Audis battling for supremacy, the top 2. Tim Jarchel is the man with the yellow highlights and the purple body. The green highlights behind him is the 85 car of Arnaud Lacombe, the Frenchman.
Yep, Arnaud Lacombe, a very experienced driver, highly decorated in sim racing. Looks like he's got the advantage over the 2 Audis at the moment. The question is, do you use this portion of the race to work together and try and close the gap on the cars in front, or risk holding each other up, fighting for position so early into proceedings? So Lacombe, a fellow Audi driver in front, seems to have a little bit more pace at the moment, but maybe he's playing the wise game, not showing his nose too much, keeping control of his tyres and letting the 2, Jarchel and Lacombe, close up on the gaggle of Porsches in front before dropping a little bit too far away to be able to challenge. Because Martin, it's a 60-minute race, which is a substantial amount of time, but it's still over in a heartbeat. One mistake, you're out of contention.
Well, somebody has made a mistake somewhere. There was a brief flash of yellow flags in the indicator bar at the top. It's gone back to green again now, but that means somebody has gone off. And the chances that was a lunge. Just in 10th position there, the sort of salmon rear end of the 97 Porsche. And he's hanging on to the back of those. Gianfranco Giglioli from Italy. He's a privateer entry, not part of a racing team as such. In fact, it's not. That's number 50 car. So he's got back in front. Gioli had got by Ogorodnikov, but the Russian has fought his way back into 10th position. Or has he? Or has he just dropped away? So we're watching the orange, salmon and yellow colours. That is Ogorodnikov. It does look as though Gioli is just in front of him. So he did stay in front.
Yeah, I think Gioli is still leading that little battle as a name that we'll know very well from last season's SRO series, as we see a replay of the race start once again.
Okay, don't watch the leaders because we were watching them before. It looked good and clean, but there was contact on row 2 of the grid. That's exactly what you want, is to risk knocking a balance weight off, damaging a wheel, maybe knocking a valve and then losing the air in the tyre on the run down to the first corner. Okay, guys, that was perhaps not the smartest move. But again, talking about this field of 40 cars, all of them have qualified on pace, but only 10 will have points in 53 minutes from now. So they've got to get on with it. If they're towards the bottom of the top 10 or outside, then the pressure will be on all the way through.
So far, Martin, track conditions look to be favourable for the drivers. We've not predicted any rain. There are dynamic weather conditions in play within this race, but it's looking like we're going to go dry through to checkered flag. So it is just a case of managing the car and bringing yourself up. There's no curveballs going to be in play, I don't think. So drivers are going to have to overtake on merit on the circuit, which is all the more difficult when a field is so closely compacted as it is here with these cars and the balance of performance that it's in play with GT3 racing around the world, not just in this championship.
Here's the battle for third place. We're on board looking back from Daniel Savini. Behind him is the car that made contact on that run down to Copse the first time, Alex Turato, the 91 Porsche. So there they are from the outside. Turato just hidden by Savini as they came up towards the camera there.
Yeah, Turato into one of the most difficult sections of the track now. This is going to be challenging. You lose downforce following the car in front so closely. So Turato's got to be careful not to overstate his purpose in this section. Keep the car on the racing line. Try and get a slipstream off that massive rear splitter of the Porsche in front. But actually, I think Savini was a little bit quicker off the Beckett's complex. So Turato's closing now, you can see, with the slipstream, but not enough to really affect any kind of overtake. And Turato doesn't even really push Savini into a defensive line. So a shame for Turato, lost it there in Beckett's, and actually Martin's under pressure from Ibrahimi behind as he gets very close in the braking.
Yeah, he was under pressure going into Beckett's. Oh, this is where the yellows came from earlier on, 66. In trouble in the Lamborghini. Now, all of the Lamborghini drivers in the race, if they make it to the finish line, will be entered into a prize draw as well. And up for grabs for them is a GT Omega Art racing rig. So for all the Lamborghini drivers, that's up for grabs as well. Who is our top Lamborghini at the moment? Well, they are not in the top 23, so the Lamborghini's definitely struggling here.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I'm sorry, Martin.
No, go ahead.
It was unfortunate there was more than one Lamborghini involved in that incident as well, so they're staying close on pace by the seams of it, but tripping up over each other. Very unfortunate for the Lamborghini drivers. So early in the race as well. We're only 10 minutes into the event and already we've seen a little bit of contact.
Well, there are only 5 Lamborghinis in the field of 40 and 2 of them, and they looked identical, so you're assuming teammates made contact with each other. So not the great way of starting. Well, the battle for 4th place continues. Look at the tiny gaps. Ibrahimi, who was just a 10th behind Turato for 4th place, he's now dropped away, so he's lost ground somewhere, and Turato, as we watch him now, is starting to close back in on Daniel Savini in front of him in the green and purple car. And again, Ibrahimi coming on to the hangar straight, good exit there. He's got space behind him, 1.5 seconds, 1.6 now, out to the only Finn in the race, Savalainen, who's in 6th position with company behind. And you can see there are the field is breaking up now because behind Savalainen and Penko, there's another second back to the battle for 8th. Well, there we saw the end of one of our Lamborghini incidents, the 56 car Corrado Ciliello from Italy, another of the GTWR Racing Team cars. That was
Alex Turato now in the Porsche we're looking at seems to have found himself some pace, just showing his nose up the inside of Savini, I think it is. So this fight continues. It's been quite a close fight, and Ibrahimi, as we mentioned earlier, dropped back a little bit, but that sort of half look up the inside has opened the door for Ibrahimi to close the gap back up again. And at the moment, you could throw a blanket over these three cars. They're obviously the very same car and model, roughly using the same sort of fuel loads. It's a 60-minute race. It's a no-brainer how much juice you're going to put in the tank there. So this is very much a case of driver skill wins through. We've got Ibrahim is one of the more experienced of these three drivers, been sim racing a little bit longer than his rivals in front, but very interested to see if that experience will transfer into racecraft and overtaking as the race progresses.
And for Samir Ibrahimi, it's got to translate into patience as well. Half a lunge is not better than no lunge at all, not with 45 minutes plus still remaining. We're barely a quarter of an hour in. Everybody's still on very heavy fuel loads. Their tyres are fresh, and so are their minds. This is not the time to be going and having a random lunge, as we've already seen from a couple of the Lamborghinis further back. You need to, particularly if you're up in the points at the moment, you need to consolidate your position, keep your car under you, and try and figure out where your car, as we ride on board with Cesare Penko, is better than the car in front, and that's our Finnish driver Savalainen. So Penko here is doing two things. First of all, he's watching where Savalainen is faster and slower than he is. Savalainen, for instance, might be a little quicker out of here, out of the loop and out of club corner rather, and heading down past the wing. And then he's got to figure out how and why that happens, and he's got to try and figure out where Cesare himself is quicker. Is he better on brakes? Has he got a better front end than the car in front? And if he has worked that out, how's he going to use it? Where is he going to make the move? And when he's decided where he thinks he can get him, at the Vale or in the loop or maybe at Luffield or maybe into Maggots and Beckett's, then he's got to try and hide that. He's got to show his nose somewhere else to take his rival's eye off the ball. So Jonas Savalainen at the moment has got to hang on where he is and try and just be as precise as possible. In a real world racing car, you'd be studying your mirrors. It's not so easy on the sims, as you will all know, to be able to do that, have that spatial and distance awareness. The human eye is an astonishing thing. Looking in a piece of reflective glass, you can judge distances to a remarkable degree. Back with our battle for third then. Daniel Savini still hanging on. And Paul, he's the slowest of these three, isn't he? They are all over him still, but just haven't managed to lever him offline enough.
Yeah, and the prize to get past Savini, of course, is a provisional podium position. So the cars behind will be absolutely desperate. They'll see the two leaders starting to inch away now. Sahore has got a 1.2 second advantage at the moment over Nerby in front. As we see actually the chasing pack run a little bit wide, but still Savini remains under pressure. They'll be desperate to get past Martin, start gapping Savini, start closing that gap down to the race leaders. But as well, they'll have to be conscious, as you mentioned, not to make a mistake. If Turato's in a difficult position, a half overtaking manoeuvre will open the door immediately if Ibrahimi behind. And then you've not got one car to pass, you've got two, and the battle becomes twice as difficult as it was before you made the move.
Really interesting as we went into Abbey, the first corner on the Formula One circuit there. It's a really fast right-hander and it's blind as well. You know that it opens up, but it is slightly intimidating to say the least at real speed. And Savini here, who we're just looking at, number 10, the Porsche using all of the curbing, whereas the others were staying on the tarmac. And you can see he just pulled out a car length or two. Looking a little further back, I was watching this on the timing monitors now, just in front of the battle for 10th place. We're looking here at the 85 Audi, and that is Arnaud Lacombe. Let's take a look at our GT Omega replay, and this is the two Lamborghinis towards the tail. Contact there, and one of the Audis gets spun out. Unfortunately, the sister Lamborghinis end up where it used to be a gravel trap there at Cops Corner in my day, and in the runoff area. So as long as there's not too much damage, they should be able to continue. Arnaud Lacombe, the 85 Audi, still in 8th place. 1.8 seconds is the gap back to, it's still in 9th. 1.8 seconds is the gap back to 10th. Gianfranco Giglioli. So he's under pressure himself for 10th position. You can see the battle there. Giglioli with the turquoise nose. He's got the Russian right behind him. And so Ogorodnikov looking to make a move, because at the moment Ogorodnikov getting 0 points. It's Eurovision weekend and he wants to get into those points paying positions. Looking a little further back, right in the middle of the action, the bottom of the top 20. Car in highlight number 93, and that is Till Fornam of Germany. 3 wide, and there you go. Spinner. So who was that? Spun just in front of them, despite the fact they all bumped into each other and tripped over. They've all picked up a spot. And was that Giglioli? I'm not sure. We'll have to pick up and see where he's got to when they pass the next timing beam. 93 Porsche, Till Fornam there with the yellow highlights. Got the Audi right behind him. And that's Butterfoulier, because the Bentley got through, didn't it? The number 9 machine. So a few changes. Till Fornam, I think, probably remains in 18th because he lost a spot to the Bentley, but these guys all got a spot because of the spinner. And the spinner there is 5 or 6 cars behind Till Fornam. So wherever you are in the top 20, 30, 40 or 10, it is action all the way. And this is exactly what we anticipated, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the thing. The cars are so tightly compressed. I was watching that, Martin, and I'm thinking this is going to end in disaster. And then suddenly there's a car facing the wrong direction. And unbelievably, everybody made it through, apart from somebody who looks like they went and had an accident on their own in the Porsche. So some aggressive driving from all our drivers there. I'm sure race control will be keeping their eye on that one, making sure everybody's behaving. But luckily, they survive. As well, looking at Strelo now, who's one of 2 twins racing in this race today. So Ray Strelo and his brother Steve, twin brothers, both racing in the event. And Strelo currently 13th, but all over the back of Florian Hasse in the Audi in front.
Yeah, and it looks like the Bentley's got the pace to get by the Audi. He's just going to have to look for the opportunity. Of course, they've all moved up a spot, so that will have not been lost on him. When you pass the car at the side of the road, immediately go, good, that's one more out the way, and that puts him only 3 cars away from points. And that's really, really important now. He's just easing away from the Porsche behind. Number 21 car behind him, Simone Mineo, another of the privateers, but the K-Pack Bentley here, as you say, one of the twins, Raig Strelo. In fact, Raig was entered as number 2 and Steve is number 3 originally on our entry list. And both of them super experienced, 12 years of experience each. Now, what are we seeing here? This is into the Beckett's S's, as ever, cars off on the left-hand side. And it was one of our 2 Lamborghinis that had the opening lap incident as well. So they are struggling for pace. They'll be looking for something a little bit better, maybe when we get to next week and Spa-Francorchamps. 4 fast weeks. I mean, that's the real thing here for all of these drivers as we look at our lead battle with Saroui out front and Nerbi still just over half a second behind him. 4 races in 4 weeks, and only the top 10 point scorers go through into the grand finale to meet the best of all the other series. So there are no lets here. This is not tennis. You don't get a second serve. Every single lap of each of these races is going to count. Now then, we were just watching Raig Strelo chasing Hasse in the Audi, and Hasse has got a bit of an issue, Florian Hasse.
Yeah, we've got a drive-through penalty for Florian. So car number 67, Florian Hasse, and that, I believe, is for contact with the number 156. So Florian Hasse, drive-through penalty. Short pit lane here at Silverstone. Don't need to stop. It's literally drive-through. Come out the other side. But Florian Hasse, absolute disaster for the driver. He's currently just outside the points from 12. So shame there for Florian Hasse, but that is for a contact on the opening lap. Sorry, not the opening lap. Contact at Vale.
Yeah, okay, so he's had a little bit of, maybe it was a lunge, maybe it all went wrong. He was in that group, wasn't he? I think that all got caught out a little bit by the back marker. But you're right, he was 2 places away from points. It is a short pit lane, and if you were doing racing speed, you'd probably only lose 10 seconds peeling off out of Luffield through the pit lane and then coming in on the wrong line into Copse Corner. But it's a 40-second hit. He will be way out the back of the field. So that moves Raig Strelo up. He'll be moving from 13th to 12th when Haase goes in for the drive-through. And you can see his brother down there, who's entered now as car number 9. That is Steve Strelo, and he is in 17th. That will become 16th place. So riding on board now, 9th place with Tim Jarshell, and that is Daniel Savini in front of him. We've seen this battle shaping up. He's got Arnaud Lacombe right behind in the 85 Audi. So the 2 Audis chasing the Porsche, and Savini not too far away from the tail of Penko either. Penko dropping away from Savalainen. So this could end up being a bit of a 4-way scrap. You can see Penko there in Stowe at the moment, just 2 cars ahead of us. A little bit of watery late May, or mid-May sunshine, but Penko dropping off the back of Savalainen. Remember the last time we watched Penko and Savalainen together, they were within a couple of tenths. Now it's 2.6 seconds that Penko has dropped back. So I wonder where he has made a mistake, because I don't think that Cesare Penko's setup will be so bad that he's lost 2.5 seconds in 4 or 5 laps.
Now we're heading into the halfway mark, well, very rapidly heading towards the halfway mark of the race. In these GT3 cars, especially with the pace so high, this is the point where the tyres tend to start going away from you a little bit. The tyres are good for the duration quite easily, but they go through phases, so they start to lose grip around the 30-35 minute mark. And it'll be interesting to see how the different tyre management has been undertaken. As we're watching, this is actually, Martin, I believe, the incident that caused the drive-through penalty earlier in the race.
Well, he clipped the back of the Porsche, didn't he, without any question, and that was the spinner. So it was Coglioglu, who we didn't identify, and he was the spinner, but it wasn't a driver error. At least it wasn't his error. The real problem now for the Porsche driver is he's down in 20th, and he doesn't get to go back past all the guys that passed him when he was facing the wrong way. So Florian Haase pays the penalty, I'm afraid, for that slight misjudgment. And race directors have decided that it was an avoidable incident. When the car in front of you checks up, maybe because he's seen something in front of him, then that's one thing. But I think that Florian just left the braking a little late, and that unfortunately has done for his race. He's dropped out of the top 25. Looking here, the 14th place car, the 21, Simone Mineo, 31-year-old Italian privateer, 10 years of sim racing under his belt. Liking the colour scheme on the Porsche. I'm never averse to a bit of Dayglow yellow, and with a metallic mid-blue, that's quite the combination. So he's 14th place and pushing hard as he... in fact, he's moved up to 13th. So he's in 14th. We're now riding on board with the man he is chasing, 666 Paolo Muia, another Italian. And Paolo in the only McLaren in the field. So this is Team Racing ON3's 720S GT3. And it's an unusual choice. I guess he's thinking, well, I quite fancy a McLaren. Maybe he just likes the way it drives. In ACC, maybe he just likes McLaren. but he is in a field of one, as is our Aston Martin driver as well, Vincent Erbrich, the Swiss. Not only is the only Swiss in the race, he's the only Aston Martin in the race, and he's down in 22nd place. And we're going down to 24th there, Paul, and there is still not a charging bull, is there? There is no Lamborghini in the top 24.
Oh, Lamborghini being short of pace from the Silverstone circuit, which is a surprise. Actually, it's a very difficult car to drive. Very quick on its day, but prone to throwing out unexpected behaviour over curbs, which Silverstone has a lot of. It's not a billiard table smooth surface as well. And as you say, Martin, outside the top 24, difficult day for Lamborghini, but there are still 4 more rounds to go, and anything can happen at this stage in the series.
Taking a look again at our GT Amiga replay, and looking at Arne Schoenfleet, the Dutchman, the Absolute Racing Bentley, another man to get it wrong at the end of the Vale. I said we were looking at the key areas of the Silverstone track. You will see it littered with bodywork, dive planes, bits of carbon, inevitable there because people do make mistakes. And so Schoenfleet, I'm afraid, just another one of those. And I imagine that we will see a drive-through penalty for that as well. So chasing Tim Jarchel for 8th place still is Arnaud Lacombe. Lacombe in that ideal position, if you like, that he's in the top 12, top 10, so he's in the points. Next car behind him is not going to make a lunge from 1.1 seconds away, so he is free to attack if, when and wherever he wants, and he's the 4th in this gang of 4, so he's in the best position all round. As things happen in front of him, if there's a little contact, a little bump, Cesare Penco here leading this group. If anything happens here, then Lacombe is the man who has most time to react. It doesn't mean that the accident won't find him. It means he has a better chance than the others of being aware that something is happening and maybe having a slender chance of avoiding it. So he's on the back of that little group. Cesare Penco, ahead of Daniel Savini, Tim Jarchel and Arnaud Lacombe, 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th position. And still in 10th place, Gianfranco Giglioli, another of our Italians, and he is just holding off one of our 2 Russian drivers, Igor Ogorodnikov. All shaping up for a move, and that sends Penco defensive. This is classic stuff here, Paul Jeffrey. Setting up the move, makes Penco defend late on the inside. He runs out wide, but Penco just with an overlap as they get into the Vale. And then as we swing through the 3 right-handers, there's contact, and through goes Tim Jarchel and Arnaud Lacombe. And that was that was Ogorodnikov getting spun around as well. He's the man with the peach highlights, isn't he? Well, I wouldn't want to be in race control. I'm glad it's them, not me, trying to decide whether that was a racing incident. I think most drivers would probably give that as a 50-50, but most drivers aren't race stewards.
Yeah, that was a very unfortunate incident there, but more to the point, Martin, very disappointing behaviour from Penco on the rejoin. So he lost the car, kept the footing, tried to spin it back round onto the racing line and point in the right direction, and then collected another car. So not really mindful driving from Penco of being aware of the traffic around him when trying to get back on the racing line, and that spoilt somebody else's race as well. So I'm absolutely certain that race control will be taking a look at both the initial incident and the way in which Penco got his car facing the right way again. So a bit of a messy end to what up to that point, Martin, had been a great bit of racing between the two, giving each other space up to the point where they gave no space, and some nice driving. We like to see that, and that's what these kind of cars are all about. They're aerodynamic and they're reliant on aerodynamics. We see a replay actually now, Martin.
Okay, but this is a different incident, isn't it? So this is... Now that was an unforced error, I think, from Manuel Rey de Largo in the Bentley. I think that was him just gassing it up, lost the tail, and took out the others with him. And actually, do you know, for Cesare Penco, I think you're right. The initial contact may well go down as a racing incident, 50-50. He was defending the line. and being attacked here, and it's not wide. It's very tight, but you can survive it. It's the unsafe rejoin, and as you say, if you ruin somebody else's race, whether on purpose or by accident, then the stewards, I think, are duty-bound to ruin your race. And the real shame for Cesare Penco is he was trying to defend 6th position. If he'd let it go, he'd still be 7th. As it is, he's 16th.
And that is forever the difficulty of a racing driver, is not wanting to give up that opportunity. And Cesare Penco, as you say, paid the price for that one in quite a substantial way. But Gianfranco Gigiola is the recipient of the benefit for that. Gigiola, who's been 10th, a little bit away from this battle that we're looking at now in front, has moved up a further place. That's 2 points in the bank for Gigiola, one of well-known drivers to the SRO Esports GT series, and he's played a wily game. He's letting the fights unfold. The 2 Audis and the Porsche that we're riding on board with now have been separated by nothing throughout the first half of the race. I mean, believe it or not, Martin, with 32 minutes in to the race already, it's gone like lightning, and Gigiola is just looking to see what he can pick up from those around him without having the ultimate pace, I think, of the cars ahead.
Okay, so this is where it all starts. You see that Cesare Penco has been in the red, white and black cars, been forced to defend on the inside into Stowe, so he runs out wide, can't pick up the throttle. It's even Stevens here. There's no contact, and Penco's got the line and gets tagged from behind. And then as he spins it around, he's looking for a gap, but in fact he just tagged the back of Igor Ogorodnikov, and Ogorodnikov down in 14th position. Well, Penco definitely not guilty in the first part. Are they going to say, well, you should have been able to see? In real life, with the tiny amount of visibility you have out of these cars, with a helmet on, with a hands device on, the wings on the seat, it is all but impossible to see where you are going if you're in the wrong direction or where people are coming from. So it's sort of understandable, but Penco's race was ruined a little by the lunge from Tim Jarchel. Jarchel, Lacombe and Savini all together, Giglioli 2 seconds behind them, but he is 3 seconds ahead of Muir in the sole McLaren, who is now in 10th place. We look a little further back. We saw Schoenfleet earlier, didn't we? The Dutch driver. So this is Belgium, beg his pardon. Arno Schoenfleet. So he'll be playing on his home track, the awesome Spa-Francorchamps, next Saturday. Right now he is attacking Cesare Penco. So we're out of the slowest corner, loop through Aintree, you're building speed, down the Wellington Straight into Brooklands in front of the BRDC suite on the right-hand side. And Penco defending early up to the apex there, meant he carried too much speed into the early part of Luffield, drifted out wide, and whether by design or not, Schoenfleet in 912 gets the spot. So he did what he needed to do. Arne Schoenfleet, he put the pressure on, made Cesare Penco defend where Penco should not have been defending, and as a result, Penco lost momentum, and the Belgian went through. So Schoenfleet up to 16th, and Cesare Penco, the Italian, down to 17th place. Don't forget, 10 minutes ago, he was looking very strong in 6th position. He wasn't catching Savalainen, Jonas Savalainen in 5th. Savalainen's having a little lonely race all on his own. Mind you, so is our race leader, so he's not alone in that. Okay, again, we are looking down in the Vale, and the heli shot shows us the contact. So that was Kundakioglu, the German driver, number 156 Bentley, Porsche rather, getting spun around. And now with Arne Schoenfleet, and he's pulling away very quickly. Look at that, from Cesare Penco, 8/10. Here's our race leader and in traffic, so he's already started lapping because there is a Bentley behind him, and the man who is in second in the race is not in a Bentley. He's in that number 4 Porsche, the red, white and black colour. So in fact, there are a couple of Bentleys in between them, and the leader, Nizar Sahuri, will definitely be hoping that when he gets to them, it'll be a little easier to get by than it will be for the Porsche. Again, they're not in the same team, so you can't necessarily expect any great handouts. But Sarui into the Beckett's S's. He's keeping his pace up. He's not coming under attack. So for him, this is the first real danger point of the race for the last 30 minutes. You know, since 4 or 5 minutes in, a couple of laps in, he managed to gap Michele Nerbi in second place by the better part of a second. And Nerbi has lost a lot of ground in traffic. So the leader now is starting to pile on the pressure. And Paul Jeffrey, this is really important for him. If he clears traffic cleanly, it doesn't necessarily have to be immediately. Just don't drop the car off the road.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Driving through traffic is a skill on its own, but a lot of it's down to good luck as well. Getting upon the cars in front at the right part of the circuit to lose minimal time. And Sahari's done a good job up to this point. He's actually extended his lead a little bit over Nerbi, and as you mentioned earlier, pulled out nearly a second advantage, which is all the more impressive as Sahari is the first car through these back markers, so the people that he's overtaking will not be aware, or may not be aware, or may not be as aware that there is a faster car coming through. So Sahari has to be the one that wakes everybody up, so to speak, as the other cars then take advantage of that one. And to interrupt myself, the BenQ fan prize graphic has just come up on screen, so anybody who has commented and follows Race Department up to this point, well done everybody there. You will be going into prize draw to win a beautiful 35-inch BenQ curved gaming monitor. So well done to those of you that have engaged with us so far. But if you've missed out, or if you forgot to type in your name, or you don't win, there will be another very cool item up for grabs at the next round at Spa-Francorchamps. So never fear, you've still got plenty of chances.
Looking here at battle under brakes, and Audi and Porsche. This is Mikhail Stasenko in what was entered as 144. A couple of numbers have dropped off it there, so it's only number one in his Audi R8. He was the man on the outside getting hung out to dry. Race leader continues through traffic, and there you can see one of our Lamborghinis, very Grasser Racing Team livery, well, certainly on the back of that one, GRT green. And the battle continues behind, doesn't it? This is Tim Jarchel, 53, Arnaud Lacombe, 85, and these two cars just half a second apart, and they've been like this almost all the way through. Looking a little further back now, in front of us is the 94 car, Maxime Batifoulier from France, as we ride on board with Simone Mignot. So privateer with silver rating in the 21 car in his Porsche. And of course that means that he has to do all his own setup work himself. Through comes the Russian Igor Ogorodnikov. Ogorodnikov, don't forget, was in 11th place early on until he got tagged from behind. So he has brought back to where he was as he goes by Simone Mignot. Mignot now needs to watch what the Russian is doing, try and hang on to him. He's showing the nose a lot more than he needs to. Down into Village, and then down into first gear here, really chunking down into the gearbox. Very easy to spin the wheels up, particularly if you run out wide on the curbs at the beginning of the run from the loop through Aintree. Aintree just gets quicker and quicker. You've got to hang on there, carry the speed down the Wellington Straight. It's not named after the rubber footwear that keeps your toes warm in winter. Wellington bombers flew from Silverstone in World War II. Part of Bomber Command, that's where the name comes from. Silverstone, an ex-World War II airfield in Northamptonshire. In 1949, there was a choice between two venues. British Racing Drivers Club wanted a circuit of their own, and Silverstone came up just before Snitterfield in Warwickshire. Otherwise, Snitterfield would now be the home of the British Grand Prix, and we'd be racing on the Snitterfield Grand Prix circuit, which would only be about 12 miles from my house, so even closer than Silverstone. See a little bit of trivia there as we watch the 12th place car. Simone Mignot, he's staying with Igor Ogorodnikov, I beg his pardon, but can't quite get back to where he was. And in fact, I think Mignot might be in trouble, because behind him, starting to close up, is Attila Denks, one of our 2 Hungarian drivers. We're on board with Attila in one of the M Sport Bentleys. I mean, it's a fabulous looking car, it's a fabulous sounding car, the Bentley Continental GT3, and I can entirely understand why a lot of drivers quite fancy a go at it. But in fact, it's only the drivers who qualified on the Silverstone circuit server who have opted for Bentleys, because there were 10 who got through. You had to use a Bentley for Silverstone, and there are only 10 Bentleys in the race. So unless I'm really missing something very obvious, these Bentleys all qualified here at Silverstone. So,
and Martin, just to let you know, and the viewers at home, that Penko and Savini have drive-through penalties. So Cesare Penko currently 19th and Savini running in 22nd position will have to come down pit road, which is at this stage in the race, well, at any stage in the race to be fair, but this stage in particular, absolute disaster for both of those drivers as they get drive-through penalties for on-track collisions.
and don't forget, they were both in that top 6 battle, weren't they? They were 5th and 6th. And it was Daniel Savini, really, who made contact with Penko, and that's what triggered it all off. So Savini is getting the penalty for spinning Cesare Penko, and Penko getting the penalty, I'm assuming, for an unsafe rejoin that clattered out Igor Ogorodnikov. But Ogorodnikov, bizarrely, has almost got back to where he was. Here's our Aston Martin. Little hurrah here, as he has moved up the order a fraction. So, an unusual looking colour for an Aston Martin, unless you watch TF Sport in the World Endurance Championship. They have got a red Aston Martin. Last year it was blue, this year red, but definitely has much more of a kind of Ferrari 550 Maranello look about it. The original 550 Maranello GT racer, and indeed the original Aston Martin GT racer, developed by the same company, Pro Driving Warwickshire. Cesare Penko then with that drive-through penalty, and behind him the man who is also heading into the pits in the not too distant future, Daniel Savini, the number 10 car there at the bottom of the 20 anyway, and so that contact, I'm afraid, has pretty much ruined their race. And the red Aston Martin in front is the Swiss, Vincent Erbrich. I thought being Swiss red is the natural colour, maybe it should have had some white on as well. Let's take a look at the replay here. This is Bentley on Audi, and that is a good move, well put to bed. Luca Schmidt on the inside in the number 11 Audi. It wasn't quite completed, was it, by Lozanov in the Bentley? And he just couldn't quite hang on. I thought he was going to make that move stick. Didn't quite have the traction where he needed it. Ooh. If Savini has Penko off here again, then he might be spending quite a while on the sofa outside the steward's room, which is not a good place to be. Savini goes round again. Cesare Penko serving his drive-through. You just saw him heading into the pits. There he is.
Intelligent move by Penko there. Just get out of the way. He's clearly slower than Savini behind. Get out of the way, serve his penalty, and pay the price for his transgression. But Savini's only got 3 laps in which to complete his, so I would imagine next time around Daniel Savini will be chucking it down pit road and paying that price as well. Looking at Minio now, getting bottoming out a little bit there over the bump, but manages to keep the car under control. And Simone Minio now chasing these two, despite the Russian driver's mistake or incident earlier on that's knocked him back down again. I sort of thought he would clear Minio, but Minio's valiantly holding on to the back of the orange and yellow Porsche ahead, which is surprised me at the moment. And Attila Denks as well, just 7/10 in a rear, is looking to buy into this fight as well for what is just outside the top 10 and the championship points paying positions.
Yeah, their real problem is that they are just a second away from Maxime Batufoulier, the Frenchman, in his Audi, and they're not going to get to him if battle breaks out here. So, yeah, on board with Simone Minio, and Ogorodnikov got by him remarkably easily. I think he just caught Minio completely by surprise because he just scythed by him, but as you say, cannot get past. Now, of course, final 15 minutes of the race, and we're 3/4 of the way into the 60-minute encounter at Silverstone. And so the nature of the cars is all changing. And you have a lot of choices when you're setting your car up at the beginning of the race. Strong early on, strong late on. It depends where you qualify, what suits your racing nature, whether you're by defensive nature or more of an aggressive nature. That can make a big difference. We're looking at the tail end of Tim Jarchel for 6th position. We're riding with Arnaud Lacombe. This has been the view Lacombe has had at the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit for 30 minutes minimum. A big wide blue backside and some periphery, and that's it. All he's seen is Audi tail and wing, and he lunges to the inside, completely caught me by surprise and Jarchel as well. Arnaud Lacombe, and he's got the inside line as well, down at the end of the Vale. And Lacombe is there, an overlap for Jarchel. There is. Lacombe gives him racing room. Jarchel gives Lacombe racing room. You see, it can be done, and Lacombe trying to come back. Jarchel having a little naughty weave down the straight. Battle is on into Abbey.
Fantastic driving from both drivers there. Kept it very clean, gave each other racing room, as you say. That is exactly the sort of racing that we want to be seeing at this point. And now Lacombe's had a taste of that position in front, and he wants more, doesn't he, Martin? He can smell blood in the water of Jarchel in front as Lacombe all over the rear of the sister Audi. And this is going to be one for the last 12.5 minutes just over of the race. This is going to be one of the biggest fights currently for P6, so fighting tooth and nail for position 6th.
It's actually the closest gap in the top 20, so this is the battle to be watching. A little further back, number 14, Jose Largo Montero in his Bentley Continental, under pressure coming down the hanger straight. He sticks it on the right-hand side. Okay, Clever Clogs, you go the long way around the outside if you're so fast. And the Bentley stays on the inside, 67 around the outside. Florian Haase, the Onyx Gaming driver, uses the runoff area. Race Control might want him to hand that back. He picks up the place by going off track. So he's 4 wheels off outside the white line. That might be handed back a little bit later. It's out of the points, but you know, it's not always just about the points. For all of these gamers, having qualified for the AM series is a massive feather in their cap to start with. And then, of course, 3 more races to try and get yourself into the top 10 in the overall standings. Looking back at our Hungarian in the Bentley, Attila Denks, number 18 car. He's in 14th place, chasing the 93 Porsche Till Fornam. This battle's been going on for a while, hasn't it?
Attila Denks was looking a little bit more on his tippy toes earlier in the race, but doesn't quite seem to have the pace to keep, well, as I was saying that, he's closing into Vorman now, but Attila Denks, a driver that I was expecting a little bit more from, Martin, this race, has not really had clean air, not really been able to show the true pace of a Bentley that we know is very quick. Bentley, of course, still heads the race at this moment in time, having been unchallenged, Nigel Sahari, at the front of the field pretty much throughout the 50 minutes that we've been watching so far. But you'll notice, everybody at home on the screen, the sun is starting to set at the British Grand Prix Silverstone venue. The track temperature's changing, it's rubbering in, the cars are going through the cycles depending on how their setup is, how the drivers have looked after the tyres, any contact they may have picked up throughout the course of the race. So what you started with underneath you at the beginning of this event 50 minutes ago is not what you're going to have underneath you now. For some people, that's advantageous. For others, it's going to be carrying problems and trying to stroke it home to the flag. So Attila Denks maybe had a little bit more pace in the middle of the race, but doesn't quite have enough to keep with the Vornman and Minio fight ahead, which is a shame for Attila Denks because he's a very talented driver that's shown good pace so far during this SRO Esport GT AM Championship.
We're heading down into the Beckett's S's. This is our Tim Jarchel, Arnaud Lacombe battle. And you see there Jarchel rather, braking hard down from 5th to 3rd, going into the second element of the S's, and it's from that moment onwards and that right hand that you start to build up speed out of the chapel curve, down the hanger straight. And he can't shake off Arnaud Lacombe. Lacombe's coming again down the inside into Stowe. This is 150 mile an hour in fifth gear, in sixth gear, down into fifth. Lacombe goes through. This time he's got to stay on the inside, and this time he has to really cut off Tim Jarchel here. Jarchel is still alongside in the 53 car. Has he got an underlap? Yes, he has. And again, Lacombe makes the pass, and Jarchel takes the spot back. So Lacombe, no shortage of effort, but he is shy on being rewarded. Here's our race leader, though. Our pole sitter, Nizar Sahouri, is now 4.7 seconds ahead of Michele Nerbi, the Porsche that is in second place. So he has done a great job in traffic. The Spaniard is romping away here for Team Parker. Don't forget, we go to Barcelona later in the season as well. So he gets a chance to race on his home circuit. And that will be the fourth and final qualifying race. After Spa-Francorchamps next weekend, in 2 weeks' time, the Nürburgring in Germany, and then the Circuit de Catalunya just outside of Barcelona. Till Fornam, he's pulled away from our Bentley driving Hungarian Attila Denks, who also is Hungary's WTCR sim racing champion. So touring cars and GTs. A lot of drivers like to make that combination if they can. And Banks there being dropped behind as Till Vornam was closing in on Simone Minio. So Vornam just 0.3 of a second behind the Porsche driver in front of him. And Olga Rodnikov was right in front of them as well, few seconds up the road. So got a little bit of a technical problem, but with the final 10 minutes hoving into sight, it's all looking pretty good for the Bentley driver.
Martin, question for you while we're dealing with this technical issue. How have you felt about the level of driving that we've seen? We've seen some incidents, but we've seen some really good side-by-side action so far as well from our drivers.
I think in an SRO sprint race, which is another 60 minutes with real drivers and real cars, even on a dry Silverstone circuit, we'd have seen more incidents. I think that this is one of the things I think that is not being appreciated quite so much about sim racing is how consistent and how metronomically clean and clinical a lot of the driving is. You know, it's really, really hard to make a pass. And the real world drivers who have come in either in touring cars or GTs or single seaters, they're finding it really, really hard. In the same way that you and I would if we went racing, even at a club level, against drivers who have done it a lot, because they are polished, they're rehearsed, and that's exactly what you're getting from the sim racing community. And these guys, you know, club racing, essentially stepping up into the AM series with a big, big prize at the end of it. What's going to be interesting when we get to wherever the final race is, because it hasn't been voted on yet by the fans, and be very interesting to see where that is, will be just how the guys from the AM series go, because they'll be up against all the other quote pro gamers and you know, guys who are doing this for a living as well as the best of the pro racers. So I think the AM drivers in this series have got a real opportunity to shake a few crowned heads of sim racing and GT racing.
And I think you made a good point, actually. We don't know where round 5 is going to be held. It's a track that's going to be voted for by the public. And this, because we know the calendar for the SRO Esport GT AM Championship so far, we know that we're starting at Silverstone, we're going to Spa, we're going to Nürburgring, we know we're doing Barcelona, and we know the season finale. We don't know the track for the season finale. It's also going to be about adaptation. So the drivers have been able to practice, put hundreds, thousands even, of laps in, which is not something that real-world drivers can enjoy. In the real world, you're limited for tyres, you're limited for fuel, budget, availability. Some of these guys, I dare say, have been 3-4 hours per day, pounding and pounding and pounding around the track. That doesn't help you when it comes to perform on race day, of course. That's still a different tyre skill set. But not knowing what track, Martin, we're going to be racing on, I dare say, I suspect they'll be informed very close to race day, and it's who can adapt quickest, who can make the most of their available time, and hopefully that brings more of the raw talent up to the fore as well.
I think that's a very valid point. And when they were looking, if they didn't qualify on the Silverstone server, if they used the Nürburgring or Spa or the Barcelona server, and they chose the car they wanted to use, they only had 80% of the information they needed. I mean, where's the final race? Is it going to be on the Nordschleife? Are we going to be in Bathurst? I mean, is it going to be on the moon? Who knows? Obviously not. But they don't know. And so you would assume it's unlikely we will go back to one of the tracks that we will have covered by then. But when the public have a vote, voting at Boatface, you can't always assume. Apologies, by the way, for having to put up with our two faces while we try and get our live stream back. We are closing in on the final 5 minutes of the race, but the good news is Michele Nerbi in second place is looking pretty much nailed on, and our pole sitter Nazir Sahari is looking as though he is going to take the maximum point score. But who's going to get all the others? I think most of the top 10 looked fairly secure, apart from our Audi battle. That could go really quite badly pear-shaped on the final lap.
Well, Martin, I've just been told, I'm discreetly trying to look at a messaging service without showing like I am on the stream. I've just been told it's a server crash. As we've passed 75% race distance, the result is going to be called. So our race is over. The first round of the SRO Esports GT Series AM Championship is over. Unfortunately, these things happen. And Martin, you've worked in television for a long. I put that. I don't. Long time doesn't sound right thing to say, but you've got much experience in TV.
Veteran, yeah.
A veteran, yeah. It's easier probably working in TV in a studio or being at a racetrack thousands of miles away than it is trying to do these things with people all over the world.
Listen, we've sat at racetracks where the screen's gone black, and then you've got to look out the window, and as they come past me now, which is very old school radio, and we've sat in the studio in London or in Paris or wherever for many, many times over the years where the feed has just gone, the satellite's gone, and that's it. You've got a black screen, same as we have now. This is SRO equivalent of a red flag, basically. Yes. And so what would normally happen now, this is how I know it's not the real world. Normally, David Addison would walk smiling out of the booth and hand over to me, and I'd be the idiot who'd be filling for 45 minutes before pictures came back and anything happened. But the only difference here is I'm already filling and Addison isn't even in the building. He's done it to me again.
Yeah, remotely this time.
Yes.
So it's a real pity that race was shaping up to be a great final 10 minutes. There's some fights that had not been resolved, and okay, we're not going to get that opportunity now, but Martin, it's been a really good race. I think it was a great showcase for our amateur sim racing drivers, our AM drivers that have qualified, members of the public, members of the sim racing community, not affiliated with brands or teams. They've set a time, they've dedicated themselves to the task in hand. For the most part, the racing's been fabulous. There's been contact, but there's contact in all races. Yep. And I think that's a really good start to what is hopefully going to be a really exciting championship.
Well, I think if it didn't have the AM Series logo, how would you know?
Exactly.
I mean, maybe if you were an absolute pro sim racer, you could look at the lap times and go, these guys aren't quite as quick as they should be. What's going on here? But there's no way you would know by looking at what we've watched for 50 minutes that this is an AM Series rather than a pro series or a pro racers series. The driving is very, very good. The drivers are very, very consistent. And again, compared to the real world, probably fewer incidents than you would have had in a traditional SRO GT sprint race. So hats off. I think they all did a sterling job. The real shame for me in the top 10 is that we didn't get to see the conclusion of that Audi battle, because Lacombe had two, we'd have been leaping up and down in the commentary box, in real life, watching the same guy make the same move twice and his rival make the counter move in the same place twice. And you just know that it's going to happen again before the checkered flag comes out. So that's the real shame for me in the final 10 minutes. I think our podium positions were always going to be pretty sealed, but would have been interesting to see what happened there.
Yep. So everybody watching at home, tune in to RaceDepartment.com. We'll have a recap of the race. They'll give you an opportunity to watch it again. And obviously the final results as they're decided by by Race Control. Just to remind everybody as well, we've had the BenQ monitor competition during the race. So anyone that did comment and follow Race Department on Twitch before the in-race graphic came up, which thankfully, Martin, came up before the server went down,
Yes.
you will be in with a shout for that great prize. And there's the GT Omega Art racing cockpit and seat as well, will be awarded to one of the drivers. We'll announce that on RaceDepartment.com and social media as well. So an earlier conclusion than we would have hoped. But Martin Haven, it's been an absolute pleasure. Sat alongside you, but separated by a couple of 100 miles. Thank you very much, as always, for your time and expert commentary. Thank you, everybody that organised the race back at AK Informatica for putting the event on. All my Race Department colleagues as well for putting this live stream together. Our brilliant broadcast sponsors. To Vicki Butler-Henderson for a wonderful, warm, bubbly personality at the start of the broadcast. Great to work with Vicki. And next time, we're doing it all again next Saturday, Martin. We're at Spa-Francorchamps.
Yep. Can't wait. It's going to be fantastic. And let's hope the Ardennes weather plays fair on everybody.
Well, we were at, for the series last year, we were at Spa for the 24, and it was 40 degrees on Saturday.
Yep.
Roasting, and then throwing it down, typical Spa weather on the Sunday. So we had literally everything in a couple of days. So
yeah, so hot on Friday night, I couldn't sleep. Saturday night, I did the night shift. And again, David Addison left. We had an hour of knockdown, drag out racing. And then what was it? 8-hour red flag. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a classic Addison moment.
Yep.
So yeah, who knows? Spa is a little world of its own, but it is a wonderful, wonderful circuit to drive, to be at, and everything. So yeah, can't wait. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Brilliant. So we'll see you all next week. We're going to throw back to Vicki for some final remarks and then end our broadcast today. Thank you.
Absolutely fabulous stuff. Thank you very much indeed, boys. And thank you to all the racers. Don't forget to follow us at Race Department on Twitch. Now, join us next Saturday from Spa-Francorchamps. We will be here at 7 p.m. UTC. Until then, take care.